Welcome all Marvel and Loki fans. I am very excited to get into what I'm talking about today. In my last video, I gave my brief, spoiler-free review on the Loki series as a whole. Feel free to check that video out after this one, the link is in the description. But as for this video today, I will be delving into spoiler territory and getting into my spoiler review for the series, as well as getting into some theories and predictions on what certain things might mean and where we could see things go in the future. So without further ado, let's get into my spoiler review, theories, and predictions for Jumping straight into my spoiler review for the Loki series as a whole, I first want to start by talking about the god of stories himself, Loki. Not only is Tom Hiddleston's performance throughout this series impeccable, but the story his character was given is one of the best in the MCU. Seeing him start the series as a villain, fresh off his defeat in 2012's The Avengers, then to see him in the series finale as he sacrifices his own life and free will for the sake of everyone else's. That's what cements Loki as an S-tier Marvel character, and quite honestly now makes him one of my favorites. And can we just talk about that God Loki scene for a minute? That was pure artistry, from the writing to the acting to the visual effects and especially the music, and just the thought alone of what implications this could have for the MCU as a whole. Everything about that finale was 10 out of 10 in my opinion. I have zero complaints whatsoever. But speaking of complaints, I have just a couple I want to get into with the series, and they both just so happen to be regarding Season 2. The first one is going to be the storylines involving Sylvie and Ravonna Renslayer. These two took a major backseat in the second season, and I'm really not sure why, because in Season 1, it felt as though they were set up to be much more important later on. Sylvie literally offed He Who Remains, and Ravonna was unknowingly working for him. But by Season 2, they kind of just seem to be there at times, not really contributing much to the overall plot. But the only other complaint I really have with the series is how convoluted Season 2 got at times. The whole time-slipping thing definitely got confusing, especially the time when Loki pruned himself. I still don't really get that, to be honest. Overall, it feels like I still have a lot of unanswered questions that will likely never be answered. But back on the bandwagon of talking about how great this show is, let's get into the supporting characters. Now, I already mentioned Sylvie, played by Sophia DiMartino, and while I didn't love her storyline in Season 2, I still have to admit that I loved her storyline in Season 1. She was such an intriguing character, the type of character you find yourself conflicted about, whether you agree or disagree with her actions. Especially when it came to her offing He Who Remains, you can definitely tell she might have been conflicted in that moment. But because of all the pain and suffering he's caused her, and countless other variants, she does what she feels she has to. Next up, gotta talk about Owen Wilson as Mobius M. Mobius. And yes, the M does stand for Mobius, so his name is Mobius. I just love that. But what a great performance, and what a great character. Mobius is almost like a wolf in sheep's clothing. He's funny and lighthearted on the outside, but on the inside, he's seen and done some not so good things, and it definitely weighs on him. So I guess he's what I'd call a secretly layered character. One more thing I have to mention with Mobius though, his bromance with Loki. Mobius and Loki have one of my favorite MCU bromances, right up there with Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes, or Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson, or Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson. But I love the chemistry between Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson right from the start. Now, I also enjoyed the character Hunter B-15. Ravonna was an interesting character in Season 1. OB was a huge standout in Season 2, love seeing Ke-Huy Quan in the MCU. As for He Who Remains / Victor Timely, more on them in a bit. But the other character / cast member I wanted to mention is Miss Minutes, voiced here by Tara Strong. Now, Tara Strong has an insane resume of voiceover work from many different movies and TV shows, but in Loki, she gets to play what could quite possibly be her most terrifying role yet. Miss Minutes seemed innocent enough in Season 1, maybe a little sus looking back on it now, but by the time she comes around in Season 2, she is on a whole other level. Sure, seeing her as a giant ghost is kind of freaky, seeing her try to flirt with Victor Timely was conflicting, but seeing the way she smiled out of excitement and joy watching the box close on all those TVA agents, that was unsettling to say the least. Tara Strong does a great job with this character, and so do all the other people that bring her to life. The way she's used in the marketing for the TV show was absolutely brilliant, and the story they gave her makes her not only one of the most terrifying, but also one of the most powerful characters in the MCU. But alright, that's all for the spoiler review portion of this video, so now it's time to get into my... Now, starting off with my theories on what certain things might mean, I don't have many to be honest, but the main theory I was thinking over is where Loki is after becoming God Loki. Now at first, I thought he was at the end of time, taking place of He Who Remains, just as He Who Remains had planned. But then I remembered that Loki destroying the Loom wasn't in the plans for He Who Remains, therefore Loki can't be at the end of time, can he? So maybe he's either at the beginning of time, or he's created a new timeline altogether. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. And if I'm right, maybe it was obvious to all of you out there, but I think most of us are still wrapping our heads around it. But now for my predictions on where we could see these characters and the story go in the future. And I think all the signs are pointing towards the upcoming Avengers films. The head writer of the series, Michael Waldron, seems to be locked in for writing the next 2 Avengers films, and considering that, along with how the series ended, I think it's very likely we'll be seeing some of these characters again, as well as having some of the plot lines carried over. But on to another prediction, and that is going to be the fate of Ravonna Renslayer. It would seem as though Alioth was about to make her his lunch, but something tells me she has other plans. I don't think they would kill her off that way, that just seems too easy. That being said, given the situation with Jonathan Majors and her connection to He Who Remains, it is quite possible we'll never see her again. Which is not a very fun prediction, but it's a prediction nonetheless. Next prediction is a bit of a stretch, but I think there's a possibility that we could see Jack Veal return as, we'll just call him young adult Loki in a Young Avengers team-up. Spoiler alert for the Marvels, but in that film, Kamala Khan finds Kate Bishop and tries to recruit her for a Young Avengers team. And since he fits into that young category, he could very well be a contender on that list, given he escapes the Void. Which, hey, now that Ravonna Renslayer's there too, maybe they'll escape together, who knows. But the final prediction I have has to do with what will come of Loki's sacrifice, and this may be an obvious one, but I have a strong feeling that the events of this finale are what caused the universes to collide, which is how we're going to get the Fox X-Men, Fantastic Four, and really any other character or team that Marvel Studios can get their hands on, crossed over into the MCU. The events of this series will hopefully have a big effect on the MCU as a whole, and will hopefully revitalize the franchise as we know it. But at the end of the day, only time will tell. But that's all for my spoiler review, theories, and predictions. Feel free to leave your spoiler-filled thoughts, theories, and predictions down in the comments below. Also feel free to check out my spoiler-free review I posted a day or 2 ago. Link to that video at the end of this one and in the description. I appreciate each and every one of you for watching, and for any comments you may have for me, leave a like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell for all time, always.
I am Loki of Asgard.
I'm Diana of New Jersey.
My name is Korg. I'm kind of like the leader in here. I'm made of rocks, as you can see, but don't let that intimidate you. You don't need to be afraid unless you're made of scissors. Just a little rock, paper, scissors joke for you. This is my very good friend over here.